Hi, watercolor students. So I wanted to do a short demo on portrait painted with complementary colors. So two opposite colors. And the idea is to see how much you can get out of that limited range of hues. So on the right-hand side here, I have three different color schemes. This is purple and yellow, and then mixed together, they create neutral tones. Then I have red, violet, and yellow, green. And here's kind of a range of neutral tones. And then finally, blue and orange. So these are mixed wet into wet. That's one way you can approach it. Also, you can layer wet colors onto dry colors. So over here, the lighter colors are laid down first, allowed to dry, and then the darker colors are glazed over the top. And then you can see that there are, it produces kind of the same result. These really neutral, dulled down tones in the middle. And usually that's where you get your darkest version. That's where you can get the darkest value of color, is by mixing the two together. It sort of, that tone tends to recede more. So I would suggest when you go to paint, do a little gesture drawing first, just a line drawing that contours basic shapes and light and dark patterns. And then just in terms of proportion, if you're doing a human head, it's important to remember the face is really only halfway down on the skull. So you're going to make a general measurement. The eyes are between the crown of the head, halfway between the crown of the head and the chin. And if you, that's true pretty much whether it's like a round face or more narrow face, but just locate the eyes about halfway between the head and the chin. And that's a good starting point. We tend often to make the head part, the skull part, too small and the face too big. The other thing is, most often you don't have a frontal viewpoint. Usually it's more of an angle, or 3/4 view. That means that you're going to have to foreshorten some. Like if the face is looking in this direction, then this side of the face is foreshortened. So then, look at this measurement and then look at this measurement. Look how close the cheek is to the tip of the nose over here, and then look how close it is over here. Those little tiny things can make a huge difference when you're painting. All right. So off camera, I've decided I'm going to work with blue and orange, just those two colors. And I suggest that, just getting my paints ready off camera, I'm going to suggest that you start with the lighter of the two colors. In this case, it's orange. And then just do the hard stuff first. So wherever you see, dark patterns, just start working there. And don't leave out the, don't avoid the hard things to begin with, because they're hard. If you do them to start with, then you'll be all right. So I'm just doing light and dark patterns using this kind of orange base, orange foundation. And using my round brush. And it's just going to be kind of a mess at first. The plan is then to come back once I have the oranges down, then to come back and then introduce blue into the orange. But right now, it just seems to be more expedient just to do the orange. And it starts to make more and more sense once you get more area covered. The eyes are, darker sockets, so it doesn't hurt just to make everything dark there, because they're sort of the direct light is absent from the eyes because they're receding into the skull. I can show the working from the photograph. There, that's the source. And I have it propped up right in front of me. Okay. Now I'm going to quit talking very soon, so then you can just watch the video without, you can watch it in fast forward mode so that you don't have to worry about, following it in real time, and you can just see the whole process kind of sped up. Now you can see I'm just doing kind of slightly darker variants of the orange in those areas that need to be darker. So just more saturated orange. Oh, and before I forget, I'm going to erase that drift that I made. Create a little furrowed brow. And the watercolor just kind of tends to run a little bit, and that's fine. And when it goes on, it feels really saturated at first, and then it tends to pale out as it dries. So then you go back and work back into it. That's usually kind of a necessary part of the process. Okay, now I'm just about ready to start to add the complementary colors. There. And you can always, I can always come back with just orange again too. All right. So, I see a couple other, just one kind of shadow a little bit down here on the bridge of the nose. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, some of these areas are still relatively wet and some are dry. It doesn't matter because I get kind of the same effect by layering the color, whether it's into a wet surface or onto an existing dry surface. And now I'm going to start mixing a little bit of the blue. Right into the existing color. Here's where it's still a little bit wet. And then the blue helps some of those areas to recede a little bit into shadow. I could come back with the blue for a period of time. You know, there's no kind of limit to when I can stop using the blue. But at some point, I'm probably going to want to let the paint dry just a little bit to allow myself to get more definition. Like around the eyes. As long as the paint's wet there, I can't really do much. Now I'm going to take a bigger brush and do some general washes. This is my kind of equivalent to a big mop brush. And I'm just going to come back to the orange and just glaze a little bit. Maybe get some more generalized skin tones. I don't want to eliminate all of my whites, but let me get some softer tones in there. And the eyes is getting kind of confused, so I'm just going to wait for all of that to dry. And I think I'm just going to kind of do the general profile of the hair. Okay. Now back with some blue. and then just let it dry for a little while, and let it dry for a little while, and then I'll see what I have, and then come back for like a few final touch-ups, especially like details in the eyes and around the nose and the lips and so on. But I feel like I have generally the right information. Yeah, gotta totally have to let that dry. Okay, so my surface is mostly dry now, and I'm going to try to keep this a quick sketch, but I'm going to go back in and make some more deliberate marks just to clarify a little bit. And this is something, the elaboration part is something one can do forever. But I want this to be like a streetable image that feels resolved, but still stays within the range of being a sketch, like a quicker kind of watercolor sketch. So the next thing, so now anyway, I'm just going to be more deliberate about the marks that I make, and I'm just going to try to clarify things a little bit more. So I'm just revisiting all of these areas and just making things more specific. And so for instance, I'm making a neutral mixture now of the blue and orange. And I'm just defining the edge of the chin here. And these things can make a difference in the overall effect of the painting. And then same thing over here. It's a little more dark on the collar of the garment. Wanted to separate that from the neck. It's a little bit wet here still, so I can't get quite as much of an edge. Go darker here, just more blue added. When you work with color complements, you're always going, one color is going to be warmer, one color is going to be cooler. Obviously, with orange and blue, blue is cooler. And but then even within these dark areas, for instance, I've got like currently over here, this is warm. I add a tone with more blue in it, then I have cool and warm. When you get cool and warm variants within a color, then it tends to basically give the viewer more information. It just looks richer. So that would be one reason for doing this sort of thing. And the next thing I'm going to do is go into the eyes, try to create some clarity there. Just a little bit more delineation. You can hardly see them, so it's not that big of a deal, but especially this eye, trying to keep away from the surface so I don't smear it. Leaving a little bit of, you know, like a little bit of suggested maybe highlight where, you know, maybe light's catching a little bit, even though it's in a shadow. And then a little bit of the eye, whoops, made a mistake there. Yeah, a little bit of the eyelid. Got stain on the nose. See if I can wash it out before it dries. There. Okay, so that's good. That might have like one more round. It's a little sort of darker shading in that furrowed brow. Some of that going on up here. Some lines, I'm going to soften those. They're too prominent. Wanted to show a few kind of wrinkles. They're too prominent if they're just a line like that. So I'm just kind of softening them a little bit. And then I'm going to treat the nose. Create some more definition on the nose and the nostril. And then see if I can define that edge a little bit. Okay. And then under the lips, there's a kind of the lower lip is more or less highlighted. And really the shadows happening, you know, the reason you see the lower lip is because of the shadow that it's casting. So there's a kind of a dark there. So for the most part, I'm just going to kind of leave the lips less defined. A little bit of a cleft here. Upper lip. Some shadow here on the chin. Really kind of a deep shadow there. Goes on dark, but it always lightens. And then a little more shadow under here. So all I'm doing is just bringing out extra definition and detail that just bring a little more clarity to the image. A little more dark under the chin there. This area still hasn't dried. And then maybe a little more definition around the nostril. And just drop a little bit of blue in there to get a deeper shadow there. Looking good. This is really a line here. There. And now I can go back in and add a little more definition around the eyes. Seems to have dried somewhat. Typically, you don't need to show as much of the eye, kind of the lower lid of the eye, but above, I would emphasize that more. And let's see here. The white of the eye actually is darker than the lid around it. So that's an important distinction. Adding a little more orange for drama. And then definitely some crow's feet over here. Big time crow's feet. Also with a little definition. Let's see. And then finally the hair. I'm going to put like one big wash over the hair. And then maybe try to do a few details. There's not, not much definition there. Kind of a dark splotch on the cheek. I inadvertently got a little bit of red in there, but that's okay from my palette. Let's pretend that it's orange. And definition on the ear. And then that's, some kind of shadow there. And then I want to come back with some orange. Get some hair going here. A little bit more dimension to the hair. Now in the end, this has predominantly been done with two colors just for expediency and also just to take advantage of this notion of using, warm and cool. But there's no rule that says you can't add additional colors. Limiting yourself from the start helps somewhat with continuity. But then you know, once you've got the continuity, then you can elaborate more, add more stuff, and bring in more color. But often, you know, too many colors just complicates and just, you know, sort of overcomplicates the process. Sometimes just limiting yourself is better. So start with more limited palette, and then once you get it to make sense, then you can embellish with additional colors. Just trying to add some more kind of more interesting line work in the hair. And this process can go on, you know, for a while. But again, just want it to be functional. Just want to get some orange in the ear. And let that bleed together a little bit. Just a little outline. Bothering me a little bit over there for some reason. It might just be something I end up fussing with later. Okay, so one last check. Where are the areas that I could do more? I feel like the eyes still could use another layer. But I think they need to dry. A little more intensity in the shadow on the nose. So I'm just going to come in with a really strong kind of orange shadow there. Want to make a stronger shadow on those lines on the there. I feel like that's doing it. Softening that a little bit. Softening this. And then a little jowl down here, beginnings of a jowl. There. I'm just trying to make it more age appropriate. And one final thing is an additional kind of emphasis on this line. on the lips. There, I think this could benefit from having I suppose additional color painted into the hair, and then the skin will look more fleshy if that's the case. And then the other thing is, I'm gonna cheat a little bit and add some Payne's gray to the eyes. Just to get that extra little depth. So the Payne's gray is kind of like a really, really deep, deep blue. There. And for now, I think that's all I can do for the moment. Okay.